Welcome back to the Self-Esteem and Confidence Mindset podcast with me, Johnny Pardo. And today I welcome Ken Miller to the show. So a quick introduction to Ken, and I'm going to dive into the conversation today. So Ken Miller is an author, speaker, and founder of Denali FSP, a consulting firm dedicated to helping organizations achieve sustainable funding. His book, Becoming Ken, one black man's journey from Ivy League to prison and back again, chronicles his powerful story of resilience, redemption, and authenticity. Through his keynotes and programs like From Rock Bottom to Resilience, Ken inspires audiences to embrace truth, face adversity, and make meaningful life choices. Welcome to the show today, Ken. Glad to have you with us.
Thank you, Johnny. I'm looking forward to it. Thank you for inviting me.
Of course, you're very welcome. So, yeah, it sounds like you've been on quite a journey through your life, gone through many different, a mixture of events in your life.
Mhm.
Yeah, can you tell us a little bit about when someone says sort of like rock bottom? It's always curious because I know people have different stories go on and different circumstances. What was that for you, and what was the transition from rock bottom?
So, each person has to define what their rock bottom is.
Yeah.
Sometimes you think you have a rock bottom, and
Mm.
then a year later, you've dug a hole even
Mm.
deeper. But for me, it was September 22nd, 2004. I woke up that morning in a closet because that's where I'd been living for the last 3 days in a broom closet in a rooming house. And the landlord came by, kicked me out of my home, and I went on the streets of Reno, Nevada, in the United States. And at that time, I owned a pair of sneakers with no socks, a pair of underwear. Let me put it this way: a pair of shorts, no underwear, a T-shirt, and those were the sole possessions I owned as a human being. I was a crack cocaine addicted ex-felon with my jaw broken. At that point, it was wired shut, and I was dying. I was dying physically, but more importantly, I was dying spiritually.
Mm.
And so I asked for help from my mother, and she had a bus ticket for me, but I needed some money for the bus. So I tried to sell a $10 rock of crack cocaine, sold it to the undercover cop, which was the best thing that ever happened to me. And I was then given at that point 3 years of free room and board in the Nevada State Penitentiary, which was great. That's what I needed. But anyway, that was my rock bottom that day, really that morning. Let me say this. So I'm arrested, I'm handcuffed behind my back, and I'm crying profusely. And the policeman comes over and said, "Why are you crying?" And I said to him very simply, "Because I'm going to live. I'm going to live. I can't live on the streets." This is what I'm saying in my head, but I told him, because I'm going to live. And this has been great for me. I'm crying in joy
Mm.
that I've been arrested for a felony, which I was sentenced to 6 years in the penitentiary for, but I didn't know it was going to be that long. But even it didn't matter. The key thing is now I had some hope, because the hope was I'm in a controlled environment. And if I choose to get better, the resources were there in the
Wow.
penitentiary for me to get better. And that's why I was crying.
Mm. So you had like a change of direction, and that really brought the tears for you.
I had hope.
Mm.
Hope is a belief in a future
Mm.
vision that can come to fruition.
Mm.
Okay. So when I have hope, I have a vision of, it has to be in the future, because hope has to do with the future. And I believe that that can be a truth. So I was given hope. If I was on the streets, I didn't have any hope because I'm my worst enemy. Plus, there's people looking for me. I have warrants out for my arrest, but I have other drug dealers that I had bad relationships with that are looking to hurt me.
Mm.
And I had already had hurt me. It broke my jaw twice in the preceding 2 weeks. I'd had my jaw broken. And so I knew my time was limited. But the most important wasn't the people that were looking for me, is I hated me.
Mm,
And therefore I was open to another suicide attempt because I had already tried suicide once before with an overdose.
mm,
And I was there. I was this close.
mm. So what happened when you went? Then you went inside, and you had,
Mhm.
then you had like you're in this controlled environment.
Right.
What kind of happened from that point? Did you go through the whole 6 years?
So what happened in the key, so what we talk about is a pivot moment.
Mm,
Where was the pivot? Because the pivot means everything before you're one person, everything after you've had a spiritual or emotional change that ever since that moment, you at least had a chance. Well, I didn't get that just because I got arrested. I had mine about a month later while lying down on my bunk in Unit 13 at Parr Boulevard, which is the jail in Reno, Nevada, actually Washoe County. And I'm lying there and God spoke to me, what I interpret as God. And very simply, he said, this is not going to be easy. This is not going to be without discomfort, but I'll be there with you.
mm,
I'll walk through with you all of this future if you so choose to embrace my presence. And I'm like, I'm there. I'm cool. I haven't wanted you since. I just celebrated on September 23rd, 21 years clean and
mm.
sober.
Wow, that's awesome.
21 years. But at least that gave me a foundation. And then was important, that's in jail. I get sentenced to 6 years. And I did three because they give you parole, probation, things of that nature. So I'm down for 3 years. And during that time, I made a conscious, explicit decision with myself that I would work on the physical, the intellectual, the emotional, and the spiritual while locked up. Before I'm hanging out playing ball and hanging out with the other drug dealers and knuckleheads that are in there, people just like me damaged but I decided to do it differently because I said if I am the same person when I leave this penitentiary that I was when I came in, I'm gonna have the same results, which
Mm,
is to come back again and again or die, get killed on the streets or commit suicide.
mm,
And that's what I did. I worked on all four of them. And I put effort and action with the desired result over time.
mm. So you did that in prison over those three
Mhm.
years before you went to parole. Did you find
Mhm.
it an easy transition to keep doing those things when you came out of prison?
Yes, but I wasn't doing enough.
Mm,
Because you got to understand, it's a controlled environment. Prison is a very controlled environment. And within any community, so there's a community within prison,
mm,
just like there's a community within your family, there's a community within your job, there's a community within your village. Okay, that's a community. And we have certain rules that we play by. Well, I come out into we call the civilian world, and you play by different rules, or you don't know my rules because I'm bringing my rules with me. So there was many things I had to learn about the civilian world because I'd come off of 20 years plus of either prison, jail, or streets. That's a community too. It's a
mm,
community of the streets, of the gangs, of the drug world. And so I had to relearn two things. One, the community rules of being civilian, which wasn't too difficult. And then I had to allow people grace and tolerance that they didn't play by the rules that we played in the prison. I'll give you an example.
mm,
There are certain things you couldn't say to me on the streets or in the penitentiary. Well, you think it's cool to say that to me when I'm on the streets. But where I'm from, I have to play out a role and I have to play out a script. If you say certain words, if you call me a punk when I got out of penitentiary, that's violence. That's how I dealt with you calling me a punk because it means something in those communities of the streets and in the penitentiary. And there were two other, there's a B word and there's an N word. If you had called me those, I'm going to deal with it with the script I have built into me through habit and being within that community for 20 years. But so I come out and somebody called me a B and twice. And it caused me angst because I'm breaking the script, but I'm crying. I'm crying. I'm a grown man. I'm crying because I can't believe I'm getting ready to hit someone I love because she called me a B. What's wrong with this picture? Why does that word have so much power? Anyway, I worked on that greatly. So I got but the key, I got the foundation. I got the foundation. Now I can build a house about being a successful and contributing member of society, playing within the rules of the civilian world.
Hmm. I've got you. Okay, and what's becoming? You've obviously got your latest book, which is Becoming Ken.
Mhm.
Um, yeah. How? What does that mean for you? Becoming Ken? Is that kind of like your whole journey?
Well, it's the journey to become, it's the
Mm,
journey to until I got out of prison.
mm,
Really, it's not when I got out of prison, then maybe the next 3 to 5 years. It's not my last 10 years because I became Ken. I'm Ken now. I'm Ken Miller. And I always tell people to say, well, how do you identify or how do you, say in a simple way who you are? I'm a kind and gentle man. That's who I am. I'm a kind and gentle man. Before, I had nicknames on the streets, I had nicknames in the penitentiary, or I was called ex-con, or I was called drug dealer, or I was called pimp, or I was called armed robber. Okay. I would just wanted just to be Ken Miller. Okay.
mm,
Wanted to become Ken. That's who I was when I was 6 years old. And that's what I wanted to come back to. Okay.
mm,
I don't even mention my street names or my penitentiary names. No reason to. But I had them because that's who I was. Okay. I'm not that person today. I'm just a kind and gentle contributing member of society. I'm a grandfather. I'm a husband. I'm a stepfather. I'm a business owner. I'm an employer. I'm a mentor. Dot, 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 dot. I'm a speaker, author, entrepreneur, business owner. Okay. That's who I am. But the key thing, I'm just Ken. And I'm comfortable with that. So that's why it's called, and it's a black man's journey
mm.
from the Ivy Leagues. I don't know if you know what the Ivy Leagues, but Ivy Leagues are the top colleges. It's the Oxford and the Cambridge,
Mm.
okay? University of London School of Economics.
Yeah.
It's your top schools. There's seven of them, and only the top get in. And I was one of the top students in the country in 1980, and I was accepted to Dartmouth, and I went and got my degree from Dartmouth. But that's a level you very few people can obtain. And then I got out and I did well for 2 years, and then I did a very fast descent into the streets and into drug addiction and criminal behavior.
Mm. What was the transition from coming out of I going to the other one, going from like the Ivy League to sort of the downfall?
So I'm an alcoholic
Mm-hmm.
and I'm a drug addict.
Mm,
And when I say I'm not, I see people using some real alcoholic. All I know is within 1 month of my first drink of beer, I was full blown alcoholic. I could not
mm,
control the amount that I drink when I start. I can't. No matter what the setting, who, why, when, or why I shouldn't, I can't control it. Especially after 2 beers,
mm,
I just say F it. And then I drink until, I run out or, something makes me have to stop. But I can't control it. And then under the influence of enough alcohol, I make decisions based on the alcoholic brain. And a lot of times those decisions are not good for society and definitely not good for me. And what I realize, and I keep it real simple, I cannot drink or do drugs without pain on the back end, simply pain.
mm,
And I'm talking predominantly emotional pain because I'm going to hurt self, I'm going to hurt others. That's what I do. That's my MO. So knowing that, how long did it take? Well, when I got out of college, I cleaned up. I got sober. I went to
mm,
treatment. My parents sent me to treatment, my mom, and I did treatment and I didn't drink for 2 years. And then I said, well, now that I got all the reasons why I drank cleaned up. I can drink now because I thought if I dealt with all this
Mm.
quote unquote trauma and antecedents, we call it, preceding things, and I dealt with them. And then I went out there and said, I can drink now. I'm on vacation. I'm in Hawaii. Guy offered me a blue Hawaiian, and I had that one drink, and it was on. Drank to excess, made bad decisions, and it was to culminate within a year and a half of being homeless on the streets from a job making $50,000 a year in 1985. That's a lot of money, bro.
Mm.
That was a lot of money for a 22-year-old, 23-year-old.
Mm.
That was a lot. It's like making 200, 300,000 today. I was making that when I was 22 years old. So here I go to now making nothing. I got to live in a mission. I got to live in abandoned homes, abandoned, cars. I got to commit crimes. I have to do the things that we do to pay for our addiction on the streets that are shame-based. And I did those. But,
Mm. Okay, no, I appreciate you sharing the sort of like the transition, and then obviously you were, what was it, 21 years sober since
mhm,
you went away. So
mhm,
yeah, you mentioned the role of sort of like connecting with God
mhm.
in your journey. Is that something you still do now?
Oh, yeah.
Mm.
I just don't do it that often.
Mm.
So I talk to people all the time about this. And this is super important. If you hear anything I say, dear listener, this is what I truly believe in. I don't care what you call your spiritual entity or spiritual presence, God, Allah, Buddha, it doesn't matter to me. What matters to me is that spiritual entity or spiritual presence, I love the word spiritual present, modify your behavior. Does it modify your action? Because in the end, it doesn't matter what you think or what you feel. That's not going to put you in prison. That's not going to have your wife leaving you or your partner leaving you. It's not what's going to get you killed. It's what you do. So, can you access a spiritual presence that will modify the behavior that will
Mm.
lead you to inimical actions that are against your well being and those of your loved ones and the community as a whole? That's what's important to me. So I pray irregularly, but I pray when I need to access who I call God, that spiritual presence, to identify what is the correct thing to do. And then please give me the power, the strength, the courage to do that. And it's worked awesome for me. But I do it. I don't do it often. I don't do it when I'm weightlifting. I don't do it when I'm driving down the street. I don't need to. I have very good habits in my life. I have a beautiful life. Let me say this too, Johnny. I've been talking about this a bit lately. I am well. Say that again. I am well. I do life well. I'm competent to life. I'm not in an adversarial relationship with self or others or God for that matter. I do life well. And because I do life well, I can do this. I'm not working on myself. I'm not reading self-help books. I've read a lot of them. I have my favorites, but I don't spend time going to, retreats or go online looking to get better. I'm good. I'm very good. I don't need to be great. But now what I want to do is give out. How can I help people? Since I'm not spending all my time trying to get better, I'm good where I'm at. I've been good for a few years now. And how do I know that? Because I get reflections from people external to me that say, Ken, you're good, you're good people, you're a good husband, you're a good stepson, you're a good mentor, you're a good friend. And I know what actions I do that are positive also. But the key thing is I get to do them and I get to help others. And I do that by being well and choosing to acclaim that I'm well.
Mm. I love that. Not like feeling like something's missing, but knowing
Yeah.
you're well.
Some people are I mean, this is the deal. As an addict and alcoholic, the hallmark of being an addict and alcoholic is self-centeredness. It's the hallmark because you continue doing things that you know are causing yourself and others harm, but it's all about me. Okay. It's all about my choices and
Mm.
my pains and my decisions. Then we get well and we spend all our time working on ourselves 20, 30 years later after the trauma, 20 years after the
Mm.
addiction, 10 years after stopping drinking. I'm still working on me. I gotta get a better me. And that's still self-centered. That's still selfish. And some people won't like that answer, because then I'm also telling you to reflect on what is your truth and what are you doing to give out and to do for others. This is another thing, and I talk about this. There was a whole series of books, the Good to Great books. The great books, Collins. I'm very familiar with them. But it put into society or into the conversation of this thing, you have to be great. Most people, 90 some percent of people don't have the capacity to be great, but they take all their capacity trying to be great. Just be good. Just be very good. Don't worry about the greatness. You are not going to win the 100-meter dash at the Olympics, period. To
Mm.
be at that level takes 10, 15, 20 years of life running to be the best, to be the greatest. You're not Usain Bolt. It's not going to happen. But all that time that you spend trying to do that, and a lot of times you don't even have the capability because you don't have the genetics and or the
Mm.
environmental factors to be great. So just be good and give out and help others. That's just my belief. And I'm cool with it. And I'm very comfortable saying that.
Mm. I think that's a really interesting perspective. I like that because it's there's the term thrown around quite a bit, perfectionism,
Mhm.
which is
Mhm.
really, in my view, kind of the fear of not being enough, and it is very kind of like BBB kind of focus, like trying to get better, like there's something wrong as well.
Perfectionism is fear-based,
Mm.
period. It's fear-based.
I'd agree, yeah.
If I'm not perfect, you won't like me.
Mm.
It's a self-esteem issue. It's about self-esteem. And I'm one of my favorite subjects in life is self-esteem. I have a book study group that I run national. It's called The Six Pillars, Black Man's Book Study. And it's named after the six pillars of self-esteem by Nathaniel Branden.
Oh yeah.
That's the name of the group.
Mm.
It's probably my favorite self-help book of all time is The Six Pillars. Or yeah, Six Pillars of Self-Esteem or The Psychology of Self-Esteem by Nathaniel Branden. Okay. Those are literally my favorite. And I've read since 2004 over 1,000 nonfiction books because I write down every single book I read and I have it in a spreadsheet.
Mm.
And I have done over 1,000. So I'm well read. That's great. You can be well read. You can do the podcast. You can go to the retreats, the events, the conferences. But what do you do with that information? This is how I look at it to help others. And when I mean others, you don't have to go out like me and speak in front of hundreds of people or thousands of people. What are you doing to help others within your family, within your small group of friends, close friends? How are you supporting them?
Mm.
And again, I understand some people need to get well. You need to get good, just the good level, let
Mm.
alone very good. And then let's not worry about perfectionism. Let's not worry about greatness.
Mm.
Okay. Allow those with the capacity and the will to do that. Because as long as we're not there, we're still beating ourselves up because we're not perfect or we're not great.
Mm.
I don't spend a lot of time beating myself up because I don't. What I do is I acknowledge my wellness. I acknowledge I'm very good in certain things and I'm really good in others. I acknowledge that. And then I just share with others what I can. And if sometimes the sharing is I just empathize with others. I just listen to others. And if they want suggestions or thoughts, I'll give it to them. I've been mentoring for 15 years. I'm writing a book on mentoring. I understand mentoring. I understand self-esteem. I understand wellness, at least as I define. This is my truth. Doesn't mean that I'm right and you're wrong. If you differ, listener, or even you, Johnny, doesn't mean. But what it means is I'm right within me and I'm comfortable in my own shoes. Remember, I said it earlier. I
Mm,
am not in an adversarial relationship with self. I'm not. I used to be. I used to hate me. I
mm,
used to look in a mirror and just talk to me and talk very bad to me. I don't do that any longer.
mm. I love this perspective on being good, getting to good, but you don't need to get to great because I know there's a lot of people out there, particularly I've seen in, I don't know, in the personal growth world, and I've definitely been guilty earlier on in my journey of like
Hmm.
chasing certifications and, I need more skills before I can help people, and there's a lot of that goes on. Um, but yeah, often good is good enough, and
Hmm.
that sounds like that's been a big fuel in your journey.
It has, and it's
Mm,
it's when I came, and came from me.
mm,
This is original to me. I've never heard anybody else speak to this. And I'm not saying I'm great because I'm the first person, because I'm probably not, to say that good is good enough. Often good is good enough. I love that term. I may take that term. Often good is good enough. That may be the title of the book. That's few books down. I got three more books this year. I got to write, or I'm writing.
awesome.
But again, coming back to that, I just think it's so freeing when you're not always chasing this perfection or greatness. And I'm predominantly talking about emotional wellness because I believe that, that's the fruit of all of it, intellectual, physical, and spiritual. If you're not emotionally well, and what I mean that, and let's talk about that real quick. When I'm talking about emotionally well, we're talking about three tenses. We're talking about past, present, and future. Okay. So if you have items from the past that if you bring them up into your present, they cause you discomfort, let's clean that up. Let's take away the power of the secret, is what I talk about from the stage and talk about when I work with men. Then in the present, I don't spend a lot of time in the present. I'll tell you why. I talk with my guys about the tyranny of the now, the tyranny of the now. You're caught up in the pain and discomfort of the now, of the present, and check it out. Just went by. It's gone. When you said it was, and now it's a past. What we need to work on is the past and the future. Don't worry about that because you had discomfort 2 years ago, this exact same day. You had a tyranny of the now, and you dealt with that almost assuredly. Have you dealt with it? Because it was then I had to deal with it. Okay. The dog pooped on the floor, right? And it ticked me off because I stepped in it. Well, you dealt with it. That was a tyranny of the noun. I'm using a facetious example. But the key one, or the key, or the past, which we talked about a little bit, but the future, which is fear. It's all about fear. And all fear is the future anticipation or expectation of pain. That's all it is. You're expecting pain, whether it's a millisecond away or a year away or whatever the time. But you got to identify what is that pain and what is that self-talk that's connected to that pain. Let's talk about that. So again, when I'm looking at emotional wellness, we're looking at, and I'm not saying I'm a psychiatrist, a counselor, anything. I am a mentor and I support men. And I got counseling. I did counseling for 5 years, 4 or 5 years.
Mm,
That's one of the reasons I got well. But the key thing I had to do about the counseling was just change my perception of past events and take away the fear. Okay. Self-esteem took away a lot of the fear and taking away the power of the secrets and making them verbal to another man or woman, but they were predominantly, well, both of them. My first counselor was a woman. And I had to take away some of the secrets because they were secrets. Because I knew if you knew my secrets, you wouldn't like me and you would abandon and reject me. And that's my core issue is abandonment because I did 6 years of foster homes as a child from birth to 6. I was a foster child. I knew I wasn't wanted. I knew I wasn't loved. I knew I didn't have a mother at 4 years old. That's a terrible place to be, to think that there's no one that has unconditional love for you as a 4 year old. And I had to deal with that and try to understand what were the feelings around that, and then take away that anger and that hatred and those feelings toward that mother that put me up for adoption. I finally met her 50 years later and loved on her before she passed. In fact, I'm the executor of my niece and nephew of the estate for them, because I built that relationship and I forgave her and understood her truth. I'm a biracial child. She's a 16-year-old, 17-year-old white teenage runaway, and my dad's a black pimp and drug dealer in New York City. And I was, you know, I was the issue from that relationship. She couldn't have a biracial child at age 17, Irish Catholic family. Remember, we talked about Ireland. I'm
Mm.
Irish. I'm Black Irish. Yeah, that wasn't happening back in those days. And I respect that and I honor that she had me. That's what and we built a beautiful relationship before she passed.
Mm.
But I had to deal with that, bro. You see what I'm saying? I've dealt with every traumatic experience, and I've had a lot of them.
Mm.
I've dealt with them all. And so I'm cool there. And then I started dealing with the fear. And I dealt with the fear. And I literally sit here today with you. I have no fear. None. None. As I sit here. Because I feel like I'm competent to life. That's one of the keys. That's the self-esteem.
Mm.
I'm competent to deal with anything. I can sometimes throw enough money at it. That'll fix it. And then sometimes I can fight it. Sometimes I can run away from it. That's the other thing. I know discernment and maturity to know which one to choose. And then there's other times I understand the truth of the situation is I just need to accept it as God's truth and move on.
Mm.
And once I learned that, especially the acceptance, because most people don't. So most people, when they're faced with fear, you always say to them, "What can you do with fear?" And people say, "Fight or flight." No, you missed two of them. There's fight, flight, freeze,
Mm.
or accept.
Mm.
Okay. And acceptance many times is the answer. Freezing can be the answer for a few occasions because you need to freeze before you do something stupid. There are times you need to run, and I'm talking about physically run, and I've done that, okay, from situations which could have got me in a really bad spot. I was the right thing to do with that fear. And then there's sometimes you need to push back and fight to protect that which is important to you. Okay. If you threaten my family, we got a problem, and I will deal with it as a man, as a father, to protect my family. That's about the only thing you could do to me. There's nothing you could say to me that would make me fight you. Nothing. Just don't threaten my family. That's all. Other than that, I'm cool. Okay. But that's growth. It used to be you just looked at me the wrong way. We had a problem.
Mm.
We had a problem. No, no, no. Let me take that back. You had a problem. Because I'm not going to tell you, hey, I'm getting ready to hit you. I don't say that. We don't fight fair. So I know I went a little long, but it was a great question. I appreciate it.
I love that, those different responses, because we hear the fight, flight, and freeze kind of response, but the accept one, that response, the fourth one you said there is a real key one, I think.
Probably the most
Often,
important. The
yeah,
most important.
I know many of us can get caught in fighting life and say, no, that shouldn't happen. And sometimes it's accepting it and working with the situation. But like you say, there may be a time when you need to run, might be a time you need to
Let me give you an
freeze
example.
for a moment or fight.
Let me just give you a quick example, Johnny.
Yeah, go for it.
My adoptive mother, Irene Senior Pomeroy was her last name. She adopted me at age 6. Unconditional love, the most beautiful human being I've ever met in my life, period. And I know she was my mama, so, that gives me a little excuse. But still, I've met thousands of people, the most beautiful person. I'm talking about spiritual. She died. She died. And I was scared because I could always turn to my mother and talk to her on any occasion about a concern that I had. And I was scared I didn't have her to talk to. That was my fear. Who am I going to talk to? Who am I going to talk to? And it took me, I'll say 6 months, a year, until I realized I need to accept that God's truth is that she transitioned. The truth is she wanted to die because she wanted to be with her husband, Dennis, and she was in physical pain with congestive heart failure. And she was happy that I was doing well because I was out of, doing well. And she was ready. That's exactly what she told me. She said, Kenneth, I'm ready.
Mm.
Let's do this. And we did an assisted suicide. Under medical conditions, we did an assisted suicide. To this day, I'm proud of that. I had the courage to do what she desired. Because if it was up to me, I'd want her to still be there in pain, being available for me. But I had to accept the truth. And the truth was my mom has transitioned, but she's still there.
Mm.
She's still there.
Still with
Okay.
you.
Yeah, still with, but in the beginning, I was just scared.
Mm.
I didn't have mama.
Mm.
Okay. So that's an example of acceptance in the face of fear.
Mm.
And what you're accepting is the truth. But a lot of people have difficulty um, defining truth. They really do. Because I did. Because we defined it by our experience. We defined it by our definitions. We defined it by our pain. We defined it by our filters. And we define it by shallow thinking. There's a great book by Cal Newport called Deep Work. I recommend it for everyone. How to think deeply, think vertically, not horizontally, because it's so hard today because we have so much input that's shallow. We got Facebook Reels, we got snippets, we got TikTok, we got Instagram, we got 30-second bits of information, 60-second bits of information. This is what I love about your show, Johnny. We have a chance to go in some depth about a subject or a topic or an experience that, the listener, but the guest has had. And you give them that opportunity. I've talked about stuff I've never talked about before, just on this show. So thank you,
Thank
for
you.
that opportunity.
No, thank you, Ken. I know there's so much value you're doing for the world. I know you're in many different forms. You're obviously an author, you're a speaker, you're a mentor as well, and many other forms
Mhm.
in the world. So, yeah. Ken, where can the listener find you if they want to find out more about your work or get hold of your book?
Mhm. Sure. A couple of things. One, I do a lot on LinkedIn. So I'm a big LinkedIn person. So LinkedIn, my handle is Ken Miller 84. So you need. Then if you want my book, which is Becoming Ken, you can go to Amazon or Audible, and it's listed there. Just look up Becoming Ken.
Hmm.
And then if you want to go to my website or interested in my favorite thing, which is speaking from the stage in person, go to kenmillerspeaks.com. You can send me a message there, or even better yet, send me a message through LinkedIn. And I respond. I had a gentleman this morning said, I read your book. I'm in town from California. Can we do lunch? I said, of course. I would love to. Because
Amazing.
because it resonated with him and his wife. So my wife and I are meeting him tomorrow. I love that. I own the companies. I've been very successful today. So I have that capacity to do things like that. And hopefully I can do something positive for him, by meeting me, the author. I
Amazing.
mean, there's authors I'd like to meet. I wish they'd make that invite for me. I can't get a hold of them.
It's awesome. I love that, Ken. So yeah, we'll link up your website, obviously your LinkedIn there as well, and the listener can get a copy of your book as well. So
Awesome.
thank you so much for coming on again today, Ken.
Thank you, Johnny. And I just want to wish you and the listeners, I don't wish people luck. It's too much into the just happen chance. But I want to wish you success. However you define it, I want to wish you success. And especially for you, Johnny, for again, having the courage and the fortitude and the capacity to have a platform like this. Thank you. You're doing great things for many people. Thank you.
I appreciate it. So that concludes our episode for today. And remember to lead with your heart and not with fear.